down the dark, dark stairs. And gosh, do not sneak up on somebody, especially in the month of October. Oh my goodness. But actually, I'm glad you're here because it's time that we did chapter 14 of David Walliams' Mr. Stink. Now, remember to pay close attention to the story because you do have some activities to do after the chapter. Let's get started with chapter 14, Lady and the Tramp. Lady and the Tramp was the headline. Mr. Stern had been true to his word, and the story had made the front page of the Times. A large photograph of Mother and Mr. Stink accompanied the piece. Mr. Stink was smiling broadly, showing his blackened teeth. Mother was trying to smile, but because of the smell, she had to keep her mouth firmly closed. As soon as the paper boy put the paper through the letterbox, the crumbs pounced upon it and devoured it in a frenzy. Mother was famous. She read the article out loud with pride. Miss Crumb may not look like a political revolutionary in her smart blue suits and pearls, but she would well change the way we live our lives. She is standing for MP in her local town, and, although her policies read as a very hard line, she has taken an extraordinary step in inviting a tramp to live with her. It was all my idea, said Miss Crumb, pronounced Crumb. At first, the family was dead against it, but I had to give this poor, filthy, flea-ridden, dirt-encrusted, stomach-turning, smelly beggar man and his adherent hound a home. I love them both dearly. They're part of the family now. I couldn't imagine life without them. If only other people were as beautifully kind-hearted as me. A modern-day saint, some people are saying. If every family in this country was to let a tramp live with them, it could solve the problem of homelessness forever. Oh, and don't forget to vote for me in the forthcoming election. It's a genius idea and could put Miss Crumb in line to be the next Prime Minister. The tramp, known only as Mr. Stink, had this to say. Please, could I trouble you for another sausage? It wasn't your idea, Mother, snapped Chloe, too angry to merely sulk. Not strictly speaking, dearest, no. Chloe glared at her, but at the moment the telephone twinkled. Get that, will you, someone? It's probably for me, said Mother grandly. Annabelle dutifully picked up the phone. Crumb residence? Who is speaking? She asked, just as her mother had instructed her to. Mother even had a special telephone voice, a note posher than her usual one. Who is it, dear? Said Mother. It's the Prime Minister, replied Annabelle, putting her hand over her mouthpiece. The Prime Minister? Squealed Mother. She hurled herself towards the telephone. Miss Crumb speaking, said Mother in a truly ridiculous voice, a good note posher than even her usual telephone one. Yes, thank you, Prime Minister. It was super piece in the newspaper, Prime Minister. Mother was drooling again. Dad rolled his eyes. I would be delighted to be a guest on Question Time tonight, Prime Minister, said Mother. Then she went quiet. Chloe could hear a murmur from the other end of the line, followed by silence. Mother's jaw dropped open. What? She growled into the phone, losing her poise and dignity for an instant. Chloe looked at Dad questioningly, and he shrugged. What do you mean you want the tramp to go on as well? Said Mother, incredulous. Dad grinned. Question Time was a serious political discussion program hosted by a sir. It was Mother's big chance to shine, and she obviously didn't want it ruined by a malodorous old tramp. Well, yes, went on Mother. I know it makes a good story, but does he really have to be on too? He reeks! There was another pause while the Prime Minister spoke, the murmur getting a little bit louder. Chloe was impressed with the man. Anyone who could get Mother to stop talking for a moment deserved to run the country. Yes, well, if that's what you really want, Prime Minister, then yes, of course. I will bring Mr. Stink along. Thank you so much for calling. By the way, I make a very moist lemon drizzle cake. If you're ever passing by on your battle bus, I would be delighted to offer you a slice or two. No? Well, goodbye. She cheeked one last time that he had definitely gone. Goodbye. Chloe rushed into the garden to tell Mr. Stink the news. She heard a grrr and assumed it must be the Duchess. However, it was actually Elizabeth the cat who was growling. She was looking up at the roof of the shed where a trembling Duchess was hiding. The little black dog was yelping softly. Chloe chased Elizabeth away and eventually coaxed the Duchess down. She patted her. There, there, she said. That nasty puss has gone now. Elizabeth flew out of the bushes and through the air like a kung fu kitten. Terrified Duchess rocketed up the apple tree to safety. Elizabeth prowled around the trunk, hissing malevolently. Chloe knocked on the shed door. Hello? Is that you, Duchess? Came Mr. Stink's voice from inside. No, it's Chloe, said Chloe. He's nuts, she thought. Oh, lovely Chloe. Do come in, dear. Dear heart. Mr. Stink upturned a bucket. Please, please, take a seat. So, did your mother and I make the newspaper? You're on the front page. Look! She held up the paper and he let out a little chuckle. Fame at last. And that's not all. We just had a call from the Prime Minister. Winston Churchill? No, we've got a new one now, and he wants you and Mother to go on the program called Question Time Tonight. On the television box? The TV? Yes. And I was thinking, before you go on, Chloe looked at Mr. Stink hopefully, it might be a good idea if you had a... Yes, child? Well, Yes? She finally plucked up the courage to say it. Bath? Mr. Stink looked at her suspiciously for a few seconds. Chloe? He asked at last. Yes, Mr. Stink? I don't smell, do I? How could she answer that? She didn't want to hurt Mr. Stink's feelings, but then again, it would be much easier to be around him if he were introduced to Mr. Soap and his charming wife, Miss Water. No, of course you don't smell, said Chloe, gulping the biggest gulp she had ever been gulped. Thank you, my dear, said Mr. Stink, seemingly almost convinced. Then why do people call me Mr. Stink? In her head, Chloe heard the intensely dramatic music from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? This could in fact have been the $1 million question, but Chloe had no 50-50 and no ask the audience, and not even a phone a friend at her disposal. After a long pause in which you could have watched all three Lord of the Rings films in their specially extended director's cuts, words started to form in Chloe's mouth. It's a joke, she heard herself saying. A joke? Asked Mr. Stink. Yes, because you actually smell really nice, so everyone calls you Mr. Stink as a joke. Really? His suspicion seemed to be thawing a little. Yes, like calling a really small man Mr. Big, or a very thin person Fatso. Oh, yes, I understand. Most amusing, chuckled Mr. Stink. The Duchess looked at Chloe with a look that said, you had a chance to tell him, but you chose to carry on the lie. How do I know that the Duchess said this? Well, because there's an excellent book in my local library called 1000 Doggy Expressions Explained by Professor L. Stone. I digress. But, said Chloe, you might like to have a bath. Well, just for fun. And that's going to do it for chapter 14. Now go and do your little questions that you have in your activities. Do your best work on that. Make sure you click submit at the end. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow for, I believe, chapters 15 and 16. Have a great day, guys.